this introduction. Yes, let's start by sharing my screen. And on my other screen, maybe I can see the chat. You guys. Yes. Is this visible for you? And you can hear me correctly?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can
nice.
hear you and see the presentation.
Nice. Okay, very good. Okay, thanks again for this nice introduction and the pronunciation of my last name. Very good, actually. And today I would like to talk about something that's I've been working on lately more and more, and it's all about FinOps. And another thing I'm interested in, as already mentioned, is also observability, and as it happened to be, these subjects I think really can correlate pretty nicely, and also can come together. And I hope this presentation will give you some ideas on how I look at those on those things. But first, let's see. A little bit about myself. So yes, I'm Rik Groenewoud. I work at a company called Xebia, or Xebia Xspirit. Xspirit is our original name, actually. It is the Microsoft company within Xebia. And for 1.5 years, we're also represented in the USA now. So there is an Xspirit USA. It's it's the Microsoft company of out of Xebia. Xebia, you can say it's like a big consultancy firm operating worldwide on all kinds of technologies. Also the other clouds like AWS and Google, of course. And I am working at the managed services department. So we like to say we do managed services the DevOps way. With this, we mean we try to do it in a different way than most of the other big companies who sell managed services do it. We try to really have a team of developers and operations in one team. I'm part of that team, and we try to enable our customers to work the same way as well. So instead of just creating a ticket wall and just throw tickets over the wall to us, and we respond in a week or two, we try to not do that and just work together with customers and enable them to work in a more modern way, so to say. I'm 35 years old. I live in Zwolle, the Netherlands, as already mentioned, and very happy to be on this call today. So enough about me, and let's talk about our subject for today. And first, why should we care about this subject at all? I think because with the shift to the cloud, as we all know, as Azure enthusiasts, it was a big shift from the old days. We have now a decentralized situation, with which I mean, like, okay, instead of there's one IT team that can maintain on-premise servers or stuff like that. Now, all of a sudden, developers themselves can spin up cloud technologies. The same time, instead of fixed upfront cost, we have variable costs. As we all know, the cost of Azure is calculated by the minute and based on usage. And lastly, we have great scalability features in the cloud, and this is a very nice opportunity to scale when needed, but also it's a bit of a risk because before you know it, you can have a large bill because of a lot of resources has been spun up, for example. And as we all know, I guess our economic climate is changing lately. Sometimes more visible than other times, but we have all seen examples of big layoffs in the US, for example, and also, more recently, there's a lot of turmoil in the world, and I guess this also makes that cost is becoming more and more important as we in general, because of this more uncertain times. And you can say cloud technology needs to be viable. When we look at this state of the cloud report from Pluralsight from this year, this report states that the budgets for big companies is growing even more this year. So there is more budget for cloud still, but one of the biggest struggles is, okay, how can we get value out of all this cloud spend and all these cloud services? And this is one of the key struggles that they have found in this in their survey at the companies they surveyed. And at the same time, what I see in my day-to-day job, developers and engineers, the technical people, they're not always really aware, and costs are not, one of their favorite subjects, maybe. Of course, they want to create nice technology. They want to use the latest, greatest stuff in the Azure cloud. And they're not always aware of, okay, how much is it cost? How much does it cost? All those nice new features. So I think that sums it up. And that's also where FinOps comes into play, because what is FinOps? When we look at the definition, you can say it's like a model, and it's built out of principles, some best practices, and also it tries to show you how you can change your culture at your organization to get this maximum business value out of your cloud spend. And I think it's important to emphasize that it's not only about saving costs, for example, right? It's more about, okay, the cloud is very nice technology, and you should use it in a proper way to get this value out of it, and to use it and as an effect of that, you can maybe save costs along the way. There is an organization. It's part of the Linux Foundation. It's FinOps.org, and there you can find a lot of information about this whole FinOps methodology, idea, and principles I will talk about in a short while. Because when we look at these FinOps principles, these are the key principles they mention. At the top, it states team needs to collaborate. That's some statement we also know from DevOps, for example. It's all about there is not one team or one person responsible for, in this case, cloud usage or cloud spend. It should be a collaborative effort to make sure that that this usage is kept in check. At the same time, personal ownership of cloud usage. With this principle, they mean the people who are maintaining the cloud infrastructure, the resources, should also take ownership of the usage and eventually the spend. The third one, it's about reporting. Nowadays, what I see at companies, and also I've experienced myself in working on the cloud, it can be sometimes it's a big surprise at the end of the month that the bill is higher than expected. And then, of course, then you are a little late in doing something about it. And when, for example, a lot of logging is turned on, or expensive resources accidentally kept on running for a long time, this can become very expensive. And then it's very important to have these timely reports in place. When we look at the next one, a centralized FinOps team, this is more of a principle that especially true for bigger companies, where they have the capacity to have a centralized team that takes care of this. And it's not only about looking at cloud spend or looking at the rates. No, it's also about enabling the whole company to have insights in this data, and also to help developers or engineers with these kinds of struggles. This is business value driven. This is about making sure that it's not only about saving costs no matter what. We always have to think about, okay, what's the value of it? Maybe it's perfectly fine to have this amount of spend if it's also in the good of for the company, for example. Last one, take advantage of variable cloud costs. That's about the scalability, the variable way of how the Azure spend is built up, essentially. This is a risk, as said, but this is also, you can also take it to advantage. For example, obvious things like shutting down test environments during non-office hours, or maybe you have resources that don't need to run in weekends. That's kind of things you can think about, but also scaling. There are a lot of scaling opportunities in Azure, for example, to add more resources when there's a lot of traffic, and to scale down when there's less traffic. So then something more about this, about terminology, because I use words like spend, cost, usage. What is it? Basically, you can see it like this. It's a very simple formula, so to say. When we talk about cloud spend or cost, it's usage multiplied by rate. So it's basically two components. You have the usage of the resources, and FinOps states that it's best to focus on the usage from a decentralized point of view. With this, I mean the usage is something that you can transfer to maybe the DevOps teams, the technological people. And at the other end, you have rates, and the rate is, that's something that's fixed. That's something you maybe negotiate with your cloud partner. In our case, we're talking about Microsoft. And it's best to do that. Most of the time, it's best to do that centralized. There's, for example, a FinOps team, or it can be the finance team that negotiates the rate, and also think about stuff like, okay, can we get savings with saving plans? Can we do reserved instances and stuff like that? So I guess that's how you can think about usage and rate as two parts of the cloud spend. So yes, when we take a closer look at three of those principles, then we've talked about reporting. We've talked about this variable cloud cost, and also the taking personal ownership of cloud usage. I think these three are the main examples of what we call what I think should be shifting left. And what do we mean by shift left? It is that it should be decentralized, right? It should be part of the responsibility of the teams that actually do the work and do also make the decisions on a day-to-day basis on the cloud infrastructure. And there you come into the realm of observability and of things we as Azure people working with Azure day to day are maybe more familiar with. So yeah, what is this observability? Basically it's being able to observe what's happening in your system at any moment in time. It's about focusing on the unknown unknowns. With this, I mean, for example, in a more simple infrastructure or maybe an on-premise infrastructure, you can more or less predict what can be broken down. For example, when you have virtual machines or you have servers, you can, you know that you have to look out for disks that are going, that will be broken, or you have to look at the CPU, or you have to look at the memory that it's not 100%, stuff like that. But in this modern cloud era where we use microservices, where we use stuff like Kubernetes and containerization, it becomes more difficult to predict on beforehand what will break down. And this is where observability tries to find an answer, making sure that when there is an incident, when there is something down, that you have the tooling in place to see what's going on and to find the problem as soon as possible. And for this, we use the traditional logs, of course, that's still there. We use metrics, and more recently, traces have become more popular as well. Traces that are there to follow a customer journey or a user journey from A to Z, and to see when we have a distributed system what's happening in the system when a request, for example, goes from place to place. As said, it's more than only monitoring. Monitoring is part of it, I guess, but it's more than that. It is about these unknown unknowns, and also, where maybe we in traditional monitoring, we're looking at technical performance data. It's now more and more about, what is the end user experience? Things like response time is more important than CPU, for example. CPU can be very high, but when a user has no problems and it can just use the application as desired, maybe this CPU indicator is not that important. But that's enough, I guess, about observability, where I'm talking about FinOps today. And I think that financial data and also financial performance can be also a nice addition to these other technical, more technical data we're looking at when we're monitoring, when we're using these observability practices. What is there already in place in Azure, for example? When we talk about this subject, there is, of course, this Azure pricing calculator. This we can use to have at least an idea of what Azure resources cost. And you can fill in the type of resource, the amount of traffic you're going to expect, for example, or the data ingested, and then you can find the price. We have cost management dashboarding in the portal. There you can see, what's my spend? You can slice and dice, going into subscriptions, go into resource groups, specific resources, and all kinds of stuff. It's a very nice tool and gives you already a lot of insights. Then there are budgets. These budgets, I think, are very essential because the budgets can be used in combination with alerting. You want to have an alert when your costs are skyrocketing, and you want to be yeah, you want to be alerted for that, and not at the end of the month, but preferably earlier, so you can do something about that. There's also something like the Azure Advisor. It advises you on maybe unused resources. It says you can maybe change a SKU of a VM, and all kinds of advices come out of these Azure Advisors. So these are all nice tools that you can use to at least make a start with becoming more aware of what you can do about your cloud spend. But yeah, the problem I have with these kinds of tools, and what I also see and hear, is that these are things that are not in the daily toolbox of developers and engineers. And with that, I mean, they don't live in the Azure portal that much. When we want to make sure that the development teams or the DevOps teams or engineer teams, whatever you want to call them, become more aware, you should give them the tools they also use in their day-to-day job. And yeah, in these days when we use infrastructure as code, everything as code, yeah, we don't want ClickOps in the portal. They don't go to the portal that often. They don't see the spend in the portal. Yeah, things as a pricing calculator. Yeah, that's also not what they do in a day-to-day job. So can we do something about that? Can we do something more there? And that's yeah, then I come to more of a central part of my presentation. I think we can do something, and I found some nice tools and ideas we can give to I can show you, and I hopefully you find it interesting. The first one is a CLI tool to fetch information about the cost. Then I will show you how I integrated some cost data into existing observability tooling. It's called Grafana. I will get into that more later. And lastly, I have an example of how you could integrate cost information or basically cost information in your CI/CD process as well. So yes, first one is the Azure Cost CLI tool. Yeah, basically this is a tool that enables you to see some of the cost data right in the terminal where you already do maybe some of your work. You can of course integrate this into scripts, bash scripts or PowerShell scripts. You can add it to GitHub workflows. You can use an Azure pipeline to run a script and to maybe use this CLI tool to create reports or stuff like that. It's actually an open source tool. It's created by the community. Michiel van Oudheusden, it's one of my colleagues at XCBI. Yes, he has basically invented this tool and is maintaining it. And more people are very enthusiastic about it. So it's very nice to see it. It gets a lot of attention. Yeah, so maybe it's time for a little demo of this tool. Oh. Yes. Is this readable for you? I hope so.
It's sufficient. It's a little on the small side, but I think it does. It works because we can all put our nose close to our monitors.
Okay, yeah, I zoom in a little bit. Thanks.
Perfecto.
Yeah, over here you can see how you can install this tool. Very simple one line, and then after you log in to your Azure tenant using AC login, you can use a tool like this by running this accumulated cost, for example. So yeah, let's run this one in terminal. Yeah, this one is running a little bit longer. It takes it will scrape all cost information about this subscription I've put in, and I also have put in the US dollar. So because standard output is in euros, but he has also made it available with the US dollars. And when it's run, you see this. You get this overview like this. So right in the terminal, you see of something of the cost of today, of yesterday. You can read it for yourself, and also you see how the costs are built up over the time, all the way to the end of the month. Of course, it's not yet there, but the light green is the forecasted costs for the upcoming days, and the dark green is what we already has been spent. On the left, you see a nice summary by service, something about locations and resource groups. So yes, it's a very easy way to have a quick overview of how the costs are made up. But there's more. You can also do a daily costs overview like here, and I also have some custom time frame put in. So for 7 days, for example. So let's run this one. Yeah, and because I'm zoomed in a little bit, it's not that great of a reading experience. But yeah, when you're zoomed out on your own terminal, it would be better. But yeah, you can see the daily costs over here for those days I've selected in my window. Also on the bottom, some average daily costs and the total cost in US dollars. There is also a possibility to output it as a CSV file, for example, and then you have you can use a CSV file in other on other purposes. I think that's also very convenient when you want to do some reporting or stuff like that in Excel or whatever. And a nice extra addition he also made recently is it's able to detect anomalies. It's always a bit of a tongue twister for me, but okay. Run line in terminal. Yeah, I've picked another subscription over here because there are actually he detects something. He detects the spiking costs for you for this subscription, and yeah, this is of course a very that can be very powerful when you want to find what's going on and is there something up with my system, and then it's maybe have a look at this day, what's happening there, or what's happening here on the 7th of October. It can find these spikes in costs for you. And these are some of the examples. There are more. There's more you can do with it, of course, but yeah, this I think gives you an idea of what you can do with this CLI tool. So I get back to my presentation, and then it's about incorporating cost data into Grafana. So yeah, what is Grafana? It's basically a tool to visualize data. It's really about dashboarding. It's open source in principle, but there's also an enterprise edition of it where you can get support and get additional plugins and stuff like that. So there is also there's that. More recently, like last year, there's also came an Azure Managed Grafana on the market. It's a very interesting resource. It's basically a software as a service version of Grafana in Azure. You can create it and you can use stuff like role-based access control, which is very useful for Azure users to get access to this Grafana and stuff like that. So that's worth having a look at. Yeah, it's for visualization, also for centralization of data. It's capable of fetching a lot of data, not only Azure data, but also, for example, Azure SQL data, Azure DevOps. Also, other clouds can be incorporated. So if you have a multi-cloud environment, it can be very interesting to gather all these kinds of information into one environment. Yeah, it's very. I experience it as very user friendly, and you can get started with it very, very easily. And besides visualizing stuff, you can directly into Grafana, also analyze and query, and yeah, use it as a troubleshooting tool. So I was talking about observability. I think this is really a tool, yeah, you can say you can use when you want to do observability, not only monitoring, but also dive into a problem. So how does this integration work? How did I make this work? Basically, I used the Microsoft Cost Management API to fetch the data or collect the data. And I created CSV file out of that one and make sure that it's on a storage account that is accessible by Grafana. And then I can use the CSV data source, as it were, to visualize the data and to make sure that it's we can make nice graphs out of the data in Grafana. So basically these 3 steps is how I did that. So let's have a look at how that looks like in Visual Studio Code. Yeah, this is basically my PowerShell scripts that does that work for me. So here at the top, there's some authentication going on to make sure we get logged into the Azure environment. And then over here you can see that I run over subscriptions, and for every subscription I do this API call. So here you can see it's the Microsoft Cost Management API, and I use the query part of it. And then I get the data out of there. I do a looping because there are sometimes you get too many request errors because of I fetch too fast, too much data from this API, and by doing a retry, I more or less surpass this issue. And then in the end, I make an object out of the data. I combine it like this. I make an object of it, and then below I create the CSV for it, and then upload the CSV file into the storage account to make sure Grafana can use it. And when this is done, and I use a simple Azure pipeline to run this PowerShell script, for example, nightly. Then we can go to Grafana and see what you can end up with then. So this is one of these dashboards you can use and you can create. It's made out of these panels. And for this example, I've created a demo application. It's a web application, and you can see all kinds of stuff like, okay, what's the response time? I have something about data that's going out. The scaling of the web app service, you can see over here. But then on the right, I also incorporated the cost. So over here, you see the cost of this resource group. And then you see an interesting spike happening around the 5th or 6th, and then the 8th to the 10th of October. The same goes for the subscription as well. So yeah, you can see the same peak. And I was thinking, okay, how is this? How can we explain this peak? And then when we go down, we see also something about a storage account ingress and storage account transactions. And as you can see, yeah, these align. So we see a peak in ingress, a peak in amount of transactions, and surely enough, this reflects cost. And I guess this is what I'm talking about when I say, okay, stuff we do in the cloud has immediately effect on the cost as well. And I think this shows it right here. When we incorporate these cost graphs into the performance dashboards, such as this, the engineers and the developers can see immediately, oh, what's going on here? And oh, we're also making a lot of cost at the moment. So maybe we should dive into what's happening here with this ingress. Is this a problem? Is there maybe an attack or something? You never know. And besides the graphs, I also show you over here, you can do a logging as well. This is a log aggregation of amounts of blobs what's coming in per day. And then you can also see over here on these days with a peak, you see a lot of blobs created. So definitely something was happening during those days. And with this information, you can, of course, dive deeper into Azure or talk to your developers or look what's going on. So that's what I wanted to show you about, how you can combine traditional metrics with this cost data. Yeah, and then a final thing I want to show, and I also think, and we are also experimenting with this one ourselves as well, is something called InfraCost. It's an Azure Pipelines integration. It works in combination with Terraform. So if you use Terraform infrastructure as code, then you can also use this tool. And what it basically does is it does a comparison between your feature branch, so your new feature with maybe some new Terraform infrastructure, and it does a comparison with the main branch. And out of this comparison, it can more or less predict what will be the impact on the cost. And what it can do, for example, is to create a comment in the pull request itself. So what I find interesting about this one is that even before the code is being implemented, you already get a warning or already get an idea of what the impact on cost will be. Yeah, so I can show you a little bit about that as well. I have it over here. So here you see an example of this pipeline, maybe zoom in a little. Yes, what you can see here, this is an Azure pipeline YAML, and first of all, you can see it's installed like this, and then it does an initial baseline creation, so it has something to compare. Basically, it takes the main branch and it creates a base in this base folder, an InfraCost YAML file. There's the config file for it, and it creates a base file to have something to compare. And then more below we see, okay, then we're going to create InfraCost diff. Over here we create a let me see. In the PR folder we create there's a file where we have the information about the feature branch, and then below we see, okay, we can do a comment in the Azure repo. So when you run this pipeline and we go to a pull request, I have one prepared. Let me see. Completed now, active one. Over here, my colleague did some testing with it. Over here, you see these comments. So over here, he does not see changes, but more below, when we did some changes in the SKUs, for example, he says, hey, there will be a minus 29% of cost, and this will be your new monthly cost based on what I've calculated. And you see a summary over here. It also has something to do with the virtual hub VPN gateway. Something has changed in these settings, and will result in lower cost in this case. Yeah, I'm not sure. Of course, these amounts. There's as I've told in the beginning, the Azure costs are variable, so it can of course not predict how much traffic will be on the VPN gateway, for example. So it's always an indication, and maybe it's the same as the Azure calculator. But yeah, I find it an interesting tool because it at least gives you an idea. Okay, when we deploy this new infrastructure, will it have impact on the monthly bill? So yeah, we will definitely investigate further and see if we can incorporate it into our landing zones, for example, as well. So yes, these are the three things I wanted to show you. Thank you very much for your attention. Maybe there are questions, and we maybe still have some time for questions as well. So yeah, that's it. Oh, yes, I see some questions in the chat. Yeah.
Feel free to read questions if they come into chat, or maybe the audience can come off of mute if they want to ask a question verbally.
Hey guys, this is Sanam Mehra. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. For some reason, the chat seems like it's disabled. That's why I couldn't put the question in the chat. I'm not sure what it is, but my question was, firstly, thanks for the presentation. I think from an observability, I think Grafana, Kibana, I think it has a lot of functional features, but I think I just want to make sure that the discussion we had was specifically around cost visibility, right? Not around cost optimization or management. Is that correct?
Today, you mean with my examples? Yeah, it is. Yeah, you are right. It's more about, and that's also one of the first steps when you think about FinOps, and you think about, okay, how to get mature into FinOps, and maybe you can. One of the first step is getting getting visibility in place before you can say anything about it. And so yeah, you are right. Next steps would be, of course, okay, now we see what's going on. What are possible optimizations, and then but those are not that was not part of my demo in this case. No.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So should I read this? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to read out my question there. Thanks for the presentation, really helpful insights. So my question is, because I've heard rumblings around organizations considering to retract from the cloud back to on-prem, mostly because of inflated bills. And, I see like various instances where organizations complain about inflated bills. So do you think like using the right tools really helps drastically? You think is it just a lack of proper management and not using the right tools is why organizations are facing this concern of large bills?
Yeah, I certainly do, because I guess when you treat the cloud just as a data center, and maybe do and use it just as a different place to, for example, spin up VMs and as is, or lift and shift stuff from on-prem to cloud, then the surprise at the end of the month will be not so nice. And I think this is the case. And I also, just this week we were at a customer, and there's a lot. There's quick wins already when you look at, okay, the amount of logging they preserve for a long time, which they never look at, for example, or all kinds of things that are just adding up and adding up on spend. That then it's all has to do with proper knowledge on how cloud works, essentially, and what are the how to get value from it, and not only just enabling all kinds of features and have a lot of dollars you are burning. So that's and it all starts with this visibility, because when people don't know that, when they use, for example, DDoS protection, and it does not add up significantly on the bill, then they don't know. And I guess when the finance, I think it's very important that that this awareness is there at the technical level of companies, because the technical people in the end, they can make the decisions in the architecture and also in the observability space. Okay, what do we want to log? What do we want to preserve? What do we want to secure and stuff like that. So that's a very, I think it's very strong point of FinOps, and it's not a surprise that this FinOps thing is becoming bigger and bigger because, as you say, there are companies moving away because of the cost they're experiencing. So, we really should consider this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Rik, will the slides be made available?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I can make them available somewhere, and that's no problem. Yeah.
And can you say more about, so you created or you showed a demo where you had a script that would basically work against a branch and compare it was that comparing it to the main, like how is that, can you say a little bit more about how it's figuring out what the delta is?
Yes, yeah. I have a try. I did this together with a colleague. This testing of this tool, but what I remembered and how I think it works is you have the main branch. It looks at the TFR file from the main branch and sees what's getting in there in the first place. Then does a calculation based on that. And then there is a pull request with the feature branch. It does a calculation on that one as well. Then it just compares those two if there's a difference. So it's basically two branches, and works like that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can also maybe add I can add some links to the documentation of that tool as well. It's one of the it's also on GitHub. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that the slides can be valuable if they have the links to the where people can find these. These tools are actually pretty interesting. That especially when you can put them into your CI/CD pipeline and automate the reveals.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree. And I will add them. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and yeah, that's it.
Shut up.
Yeah. Hey guys. I just want, if you guys, other people don't have any questions, I just want to quickly chime in here. I recently did a FinOps exercise for a client. I just want to throw a couple of the pointers in addition to what Rik said, right? So I think the tool with the observability or getting visibility into the cost was one thing, but I think the issue we ran into was that before we get any tool and it just spits out a bunch of dollars and VMs use, for most organizations that want to do some sort of cost management, they usually have a cost allocation and chargeback mechanism in place. So unless you really upload the tool with the proper business structure, your organization structure, you have a good tagging strategy in place, what's going to end up happening is, and this is just my experience I'm sharing, you're just going to get a bunch of server names that won't really mean anything. So if you really want to say, hey, this server is using that, unless you're really using a good tagging strategy, which may really have meaningful names or in terms of businesses, applications, workloads, things like that, it became very difficult for us to really make any sense of a lot of the data that was coming out of these tools. So just, lessons learned was, before getting any sort of FinOps exercise, I realized like getting together a good business structure and organization structure, a tag strategy, and uploading that in the tool really makes output more meaningful and very useful. So that's just something I wanted to kind of chime in, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that addition, Sanam, and I totally agree. because to be honest, that is exactly what we run into as well. And when we do a cost assessment at the customer, we always start with, of course, with interviewing the people, and of course, I talk to the people of the company first. You know, why are you in the cloud? What was the aim of the cloud strategy in the first place? And do you have an idea of how it's, who is responsible for everything, for the cost, and have you, for example, this responsibility represented in a tag, because that's very useful indeed. Then you can, we do, what we do is basically, we've created a, more or less automated kind of advisory thing that is more or less something compared to the Azure Advisor, but with also more business logic. We found ourselves, so it's and then there we do how to say, we connect the resources to these tags, to these cost centers into companies, because only then when I talk about one of these principles, right, take ownership of the usage, then you know where the ownership is, and it's not, so that's very true. And it's something in the past, I never really understood tags. I said, why should you use all those tags and stuff like that? We have like subscriptions, we have resource groups. We can divide it up by that as well. But now I'm into FinOps, and I see more of these kinds of use cases, and then there are different questions asked, and then all of a sudden, these tags can become handy, indeed. Yeah.
All right. Any final questions here, folks? All right. So let's wrap things up. This was thought-provoking and very practical. Really appreciate your bringing your expertise and sharing it with us, Rik. And thank you for the active participation from the group here.
Yes.
We'll wrap this up in just a minute. It's tomorrow now in the Netherlands. And so I appreciate you also doing the late night thing.
No
just
problem.
a couple of very really quick announcements. One is we'll continue to have virtual Boston Azure events, so stay tuned. We also have 3 planning for in-person events. November, December, and January. So please, they're not finalized yet, but please keep your eye in the usual places, the North Boston Azure or Boston Azure meetups, for those to show up. Rik, if you want to fly over and join us in person, that's
that would be great. That would be great. I've only been there once in the USA, so maybe this is a good opportunity.
There you go. And then the YouTube video, the recording of this of Rik's session will be available on YouTube, and it usually takes about a day for it to show up. And you can go to youtube.com/Boston Azure, and you'll find it there with last few years worth. So again, thank you again. This was fantastic, and have a good evening and a good night's sleep, depending on where you are.
Thank you as well. It was a very nice experience.